My fiancé cheated with my brother at our engagement party. My family defended them and called me dramatic, but when they had an accident with their baby, my family showed up demanding I pay for everything and take care of them. I'm 29 years old, work in digital marketing, and I need to get this story off my chest because basically my entire family turned their backs on me when I needed them most. And now, 2 years later, they show up again like nothing happened. I guess I should start from the beginning, when I still thought I had a normal family and a perfect relationship. I met Christina when we were 20, in college. It was one of those things that just flows, no drama or complications. We were together for 7 years, 7 complete years where we built a life together, or at least that's what I thought. She was my best friend, the person I planned to grow old with, have kids with, the whole movie. My family adored her, especially my brother Steven, who was 4 years younger than me and had always been kind of shy with girls. I thought it was sweet that they got along, that Christina treated him like a younger brother. How naive I was. Seriously. Planned everything for months. I took her to this Italian restaurant she loved, the one downtown that has that terrace overlooking the city, and when the waiter brought dessert, there was the ring. She cried. I cried. People at other tables applauded. All that cheesy stuff I never thought I'd care about, but in the moment felt magical. She said yes, obviously, and I felt like my chest was going to explode with happiness. We decided to throw an engagement party that same week because we were so excited. We invited the whole family, our friends, like 60 people total. We rented my parents' yard, which is pretty big, hired catering, music, the whole thing. I spent like $2,000 on that party, but I didn't care because it was to celebrate what I thought would be the beginning of our life together. The party was on a Friday night, and everything was going perfectly. People were eating, drinking, congratulating us. Christina was radiant in that blue dress she had bought, especially for the occasion. I was going around greeting everyone, accepting drinks I shouldn't have accepted because I was already kind of dizzy. But I was happy. You know what I mean? Like, that level of stupid happiness where you can't stop smiling. At one point, like around 10 at night, I noticed Christina wasn't in the yard. I didn't see Steven either. I didn't think anything weird at first. Honestly, I assumed she had gone to the bathroom or something, and Steven was probably smoking somewhere because he had just started that nasty habit. Like 10 minutes went by and I still didn't see them, so I decided to go find Christina to dance to a song the DJ had just put on. I went into the house, checked the kitchen, nothing. Went to the bathroom, nothing either. And then I heard voices coming from the backyard. That side of the garden, that's kind of hidden behind some big bushes. I walked over there thinking maybe there were people smoking or getting some fresh air, and when I turned, the corner I saw them, Christina and Steven, kissing. It wasn't an accidental kiss or a miscalculated cheek kiss. No, it was one of those full kisses, with hands on faces and bodies pressed together, a kiss that clearly wasn't the first time it had happened. I stood there paralyzed, literally couldn't move. I felt like someone had hit me in the stomach with a baseball bat. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at them like an idiot. Maybe it was 5 seconds. Maybe it was 30. But eventually, Steven opened his eyes and saw me. He separated from Christina so fast he almost knocked her to the ground, and she turned around with eyes like saucers. I still couldn't speak. I just stared at them, trying to process what I had just seen because my brain simply wouldn't accept it. Like, these two people I loved most in the world, were they really doing this? At my engagement party, the day I had just proposed, Christina was the first to speak. She said my name, Patrick, with that voice you use when you know you've screwed up horribly. She tried to approach, but I automatically took a step back because I didn't want her to touch me. Steven didn't say anything. He just stood there with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor like he was a 5-year-old kid who had just been caught stealing cookies. I finally managed to articulate something. I think I asked how long this had been going on, but my voice sounded weird, like it wasn't mine. Christina started crying, which I thought was incredible in that moment because she was crying. Seriously? She told me she hadn't planned for it to happen, that it just happened, and I couldn't help but laugh because what kind of answer is that? I told her to go inside the house, that I needed to talk to her alone. Steven tried to say something, but I yelled at him to shut up. And I think it was the first time in my life I had yelled at him like that because we had always had a good relationship, one of those brothers who get along, and play video games together and tell each other things. Christina followed me inside and we went up to my old room that my parents kept as a guest room. As soon as I closed the door, she started with the whole speech of, "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to happen. I love you. It was a mistake." But I interrupted her because I needed to know the truth. "How long?" She was quiet for a moment, and then admitted they had been seeing each other for 6 months. 6 months. While I was planning our wedding, while I was asking her what kind of cake she wanted, while we were talking about names for our future children, she was sleeping with my younger brother. I asked her if she loved him, Stephen, and she didn't answer immediately, which was already an answer in itself. She finally said she didn't know, that she was confused, that I was controlling, and she needed space. This whole list of complaints she had never mentioned before. I listened to her, not being able to believe it. Because controlling me, I always gave her all the freedom in the world. I never checked her phone or forbade her from going out with her friends or any of those toxic boyfriend things. But there she was, making up reasons to justify the unjustifiable. She told me she was going to stay at a friend's house that night and that we would talk later. She took off the engagement ring, put it in my hand, and left. Just like that. 7 years ended in a room in my parents' house, while downstairs there were 60 people celebrating our engagement. I had to go downstairs and tell people the party was over. I didn't give explanations. I just said a family emergency had come up and everyone had to leave. My parents were confused. My friends were asking me what had happened, but I couldn't talk. I felt like if I opened my mouth, I was going to fall apart completely. My best friend, Jake, realized something serious had happened and helped get people out. When everyone was gone, my parents asked me what the hell was going on. I told them. I told them exactly what I had seen. And I expected, I don't know, for them to support me, to be angry with Stephen, to console me. My mother started saying there must be an explanation, that maybe I had misinterpreted what I saw. Misinterpreted? I told her I saw them kissing, that Christina had admitted to a 6-month affair, that there was nothing to misinterpret. My father was quiet for a while and then said, "These things happen, that relationships are complicated, and that I should be more understanding." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Stephen arrived like 20 minutes later. He had been hiding somewhere, and when he came in, my parents didn't even scold him. I exploded. I yelled at all 3 of them, told them they were a shit family, that I couldn't believe they were defending the indefensible. My mother started crying and told me I had always been very dramatic, that I always exaggerated everything, and that was like the last straw. I told them all to go to hell, grabbed my keys and got out of there. I drove to the apartment I shared with Christina, packed all my stuff that same night, literally threw everything into boxes without even folding the clothes, and went to stay with Jake while I found my own place. The following days were basically a blur of pain and rage. Christina tried to call me like 1,000 times, but I never answered. Stephen sent me messages saying we needed to talk, that we could fix this, as if there was anything to fix. My parents also called, but it was worse because they weren't calling to apologize or to tell me they supported me. No, they were calling to tell me I was being immature, that I needed to forgive. That family comes first. I told them that if family came first, Stephen wouldn't have slept with my fiancée, and my mother hung up on me. It was at that moment I made the decision to cut them off completely. I blocked their numbers, blocked them on social media, everything. My friends supported me, told me I was doing the right thing, that nobody deserved that kind of betrayal. Christina's parents contacted me like a week later. They went to my work and waited for me outside because they didn't know where I was living. They apologized for their daughter, told me they were ashamed, and that they understood if I never wanted to see her again. They were the only people related to that whole mess who had the decency to acknowledge that what had happened was wrong. I thanked them and told them I didn't hold any grudge against them, that it wasn't their fault their daughter was a traitor. After that conversation, I felt a little better. At least someone saw things as they were. Months went by, and I started rebuilding my life. I found a small but nice apartment, focused on my work, started going to the gym to channel all that rage and pain. My friends took me out on weekends, forced me to socialize, even when I didn't want to. I didn't hear from Christina or Steven during all that time. I assumed they were still together, but I didn't want to know anything. My parents tried to contact me a couple of times through mutual acquaintances, but I always sent the same message, that I had nothing to talk to them about until they acknowledged what they had done wrong and really apologized. About a year after all the drama, one of my cousins, the only one in the family I still talked to because he had supported me, told me that Steven and Christina had gotten married. It was a small ceremony, private, basically just the two of them and my parents. When I found out, I felt a weird mix of emotions, like part of me still hurt from the betrayal, but another part felt relieved that this chapter was completely closed. But there was no going back. There was no possibility of reconciliation, and that in a way gave me peace, because it meant I could move forward without looking back. 2 full years went by. 2 years without talking to my parents or my brother, without knowing anything about Christina, beyond what my cousin told me occasionally. I had managed to make a good life, honestly. I had gotten a promotion at work, had a solid group of friends, was dating some girls from time to time, though nothing serious, but I was okay. I was at peace. And then, on a normal Tuesday like any other, I got a call from a number I didn't have saved, but that I recognized immediately because I had dialed it thousands of times during my 20s. It was my mother. I hesitated whether to answer, but something told me to do it. Her voice sounded destroyed. She was crying so hard I could barely understand what she was saying. At first, I thought someone had died, and I basically guessed right. She told me Steven and Christina had been in a car accident, that a truck had run a red light and hit them directly on the driver's side. They were in a coma, both of them, in intensive care, and the doctors didn't know if they were going to wake up. I stood there in silence, processing the information, feeling that horrible mix of automatic concern, because after all, they were people I once loved, and also a kind of poetic justice from the universe that made me feel guilty for even thinking it. I asked my mother why she was calling me after 2 years of silence. She said it was because they needed family support, that this was a tragedy and we should be united. I told her I was very sorry, that I hoped they would recover, but that I wasn't going to go to the hospital or get involved in that. She started begging me, saying Steven was my brother, that family should be together in difficult times, all that rhetoric they had been avoiding for 2 years. I reminded her that when I needed them, when my world collapsed, they chose the traitor's side. I told her that consequences have actions, or, well, the other way around, that actions have consequences, and that this was one of them. I hung up the phone. For the next 2 weeks, my mother called me every day, sometimes several times a day. I didn't answer. My father also tried to contact me, left long voicemails where he begged me to go to the hospital, that Steven needed me, that this was different. But I stood firm because I knew that if I gave in, if I went even once, they were going to trap me again in that toxic dynamic where my feelings didn't matter. My friends supported me, told me I was doing the right thing by maintaining my boundaries, although a couple of them thought maybe I should at least go see how they were. I understood their point, but I also knew that going wouldn't change anything, wouldn't erase what had happened. At the end of those 2 weeks, my parents showed up at my apartment. I don't know how they got my address, probably through my cousin, but there they were knocking on my door on a Sunday morning. I opened it because they wouldn't stop knocking, and my neighbors were going to start complaining. My mother looked terrible, like she had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. My father, I didn't look much better. They asked if they could come in. I told them they had 5 minutes to say what they had to say. We stood in the hallway of my building, because I wasn't going to let them into my personal space. My father was the one who spoke first. He told me there was something they hadn't told me over the phone, something important. Steven and Christina had a baby, a 2-month-old boy who was with Christina's parents while they were in the hospital. I froze because I wasn't expecting that at all. A baby. My nephew, technically. My mother started crying again, saying they needed help, that Christina's parents were already elderly and couldn't take care of a baby full-time, that they needed me to help take care of him in case Steven and Christina didn't wake up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Were they asking me to raise the child of my ex-fiancé and my brother? The literal product of their betrayal? I told them no, absolutely not, that it wasn't my responsibility or my problem. My father got angry and started yelling at me that I was selfish. How could I be so cruel to an innocent baby? I yelled back that the baby wasn't my responsibility, that they had chosen to support Stephen and Christina in their relationship, so now it was their problem. My mother grabbed my arm, begging me, saying he was their grandson, that he was the only family they had left if Stephen didn't wake up. I pulled away and told them to leave, not to look for me again, that my answer was no and would always be no. They got in the elevator crying, and I closed my apartment door, feeling like I had just run a marathon. The next few days were horrible. I'm not going to lie. I slept badly, couldn't concentrate at work, felt guilty even though I knew rationally I shouldn't. My friends reminded me that I had no obligation to that baby, that it wasn't my child, that I hadn't created that situation. But there was a part of me that kept thinking about that child, a 2-month-old baby who wasn't to blame for anything, who hadn't asked to have the parents he had. I talked to a therapist, one of those Zoom sessions that are like $60 an hour, and she helped me process everything. She told me it was valid to set boundaries, that protecting my mental health was important, and that I wasn't responsible for rescuing the people who had hurt me. About 2 weeks after my parents showed up at my apartment, my cousin sent me a message. He told me Stephen and Christina had started reacting, that they were moving and showing signs they might wake up soon. The doctors were optimistic. I felt enormous relief because it meant the baby would have his parents, that I wouldn't have to make any impossible decisions about my level of involvement. But I also felt something else, a kind of need to close the circle, to see with my own eyes that they were alive before they woke up completely. I went to the hospital on a Thursday afternoon. I told the receptionist I was Stephen's brother, and they let me go up to intensive care. The place was depressing. All those machines beeping. That smell of disinfectant and sickness. I saw Stephen first. He was connected to a bunch of wires and tubes, had bruises on his face and a bandage on his head. He looked small and fragile in that hospital bed. Nothing like the younger brother I remembered. Christina was in another room, in similar conditions. I stood there staring at both of them, feeling that weird mix of compassion and resentment. Christina's parents were there, taking care of the baby in a waiting room. When they saw me, they were surprised but greeted me kindly, asked if I wanted to meet my nephew. I hesitated but eventually agreed. He was a beautiful baby, had Stephen's eyes and Christina's nose. He slept in his stroller completely oblivious to all the drama around him. I looked at him for a few minutes and felt something I didn't expect to feel, a kind of tenderness mixed with sadness about the whole situation. But I also knew in that moment that that tenderness didn't mean I had to get involved, that I could wish that child the best without sacrificing my own peace of mind. My parents showed up at the hospital while I was there. They were surprised to see me, and my mother tried to hug me, but I took a step back. I told them I had come on my own, that I wanted to see they were alive, but that it didn't change anything between us. My father asked me if I had thought about the baby thing, and I repeated, no, that it wasn't my responsibility. My mother started again with the family speech, and I just left. I walked out of the hospital and drove home, feeling strangely at peace with my decision. Stephen and Christina woke up completely like a week later. According to my cousin, the doctors said it was a miracle, that they were going to need rehabilitation, but they were going to recover completely. My parents were euphoric. Obviously. I felt relieved they were alive, but also knew that now would come reconciliation attempts I wasn't ready to consider. And sure enough, like 2 months later, when they were out of the hospital and recovering at home, I received a text message from Stephen. It was long, like those messages that clearly took hours to write and rewrite. It basically said he was sorry, that the accident had made him realize many things, that he knew what he had done was wrong, that he didn't expect my forgiveness, but he wanted me to know he was sorry. Christina sent a similar message a few days later. I read them, processed them, and after thinking about it a lot, I responded to both with the same message, that I accepted their apologies, that I was glad they were okay, but that forgiveness was another thing, and that I needed more time, maybe forever, to get to that point. My parents also tried to resume contact, but it was different with them. They were still defending their past actions, still thought I had overreacted, so I kept my distance. Over time, like 6 months, after Stephen and Christina sent their apologies, I started seriously dating someone. Her name is Emma. She works in graphic design, and she's the first person I can imagine a future with since Christina. I told her the whole story on our third date because I felt she deserved to know what she was getting into. And instead of running away, she hugged me and told me she admired how I had handled everything. It's been like 8 months since the accident now, and my life is in a completely different place. I have a relationship that makes me happy, a job I like, friends who support me. Stephen and Christina are raising their son. According to my cousin, they're doing well. The family is united again, although I'm not part of that. My parents and I have minimal contact. Like we exchange messages at Christmas and birthdays, but nothing more. I haven't seen my nephew since that day at the hospital, and probably won't see him for a long time. Maybe never. And I've made peace with that. Last week, Emma asked me if I would ever consider reconciling with my family. I told her the truth, that I don't know. That part of me misses having a family, but another part can't forget how they turned their backs on me when I needed them most. She told me it was okay not to know, that I didn't have to make that decision now or ever if I didn't want to. And she's right, I guess. Not all stories have perfect endings where everyone forgives each other and becomes happy again. Sometimes people hurt you so deep that the only thing you can do is move forward without them, and that's okay. I don't regret the decisions I made, the boundaries I set, walking away when I did. I saved myself. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.